Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening in the sky above us. And it is Friday. Yay! Friday of a short week, although it seems to have drug on a little bit this week for me, even though toward the beginning I was off a day because I was off on Monday. And now I'm feeling a little bit like, oh, yeah. Uh, Friday should have come yesterday. Oh, well. I hope everybody's doing well this fine Friday morning. Looking forward to a good weekend. And of course, as you all know, I'm getting ready to move. So I have lots to do. Every weekend is from now until the end of this upcoming June is devoted to streamlining, letting go of stuff, etc. So today, we're looking at a weekend where there isn't a whole lot happening. And that gives us a time to breathe a little, right, before June's craziness begins. If you guys tuned in to Wednesday's broadcast with Tam, we talked about the fact that, here's what the June calendar kind of looks like, right? It's very, very, very full. And it's full, but also has some big moves, as a part of it, with Jupiter moving into Cancer and the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, all changing signs. And so that can make things feel a little crazy. So take the time when you have it, like this weekend, to breathe and to just enjoy because, things are ramping up, later as we go through the month of June. So this morning, though, we have been enjoying, if you will, a Mercury Cazimi. If Cazimi is a new word for you, what it means is the sun and the planet Mercury, or Mercury rather, has moved into the glare of the sun, meaning they are moved into a conjunction. So Cazimi really represents a blending, a fusion, if you will, of the energy of the planet that's moved into the sun with the sun. So we have the very bright light and pilot of your life at this point in time, which is the sun in Gemini, being joined by Mercury, the ruler of the sign of Gemini, and they're meeting in the sign of Gemini. So wherever Gemini is in your astrology chart is where this particular Cazimi is happening, where there's this fusion of information. So today what I want to do is talk a little more about the Cazimi itself, but I also want to talk about the wider Mercury cycle that Mercury and the sun have with one another and how the earth plays into that. Then I'm going to take that information and I'm going to turn it toward human design as well, because the Cazimi is occurring at the same sun or same gate that the sun is in, which is the gate 16, the gate of enthusiasm. So we have this wonderful kind of expressive energy of this Cazimi that isn't always the available energy, so it makes speaking with one another more exciting and what have you. And then I'm also going to take that into the gene keys somewhat, and then I'm going to take that into looking at what is the sun at gate 16, earth at gate 9. Now remember, I wasn't with you on Monday. I would have been talking about this earlier. So we're actually coming to the end of the human design week. But we still have a couple more days of enthusiasm and zest. So we can talk about it still. And then I want to look at the throat center and all of the gates of Gemini that sit on the throat center and what that means and how it relates to Gemini, because I'm always interested in looking at the layers, right? How the layers fit, right? So we could look at just, this is Gemini energy. Then we could look at, the sun's in Gemini and it's just at this gate, and that's what this gate means. We could look at it as, the combination of all the gates in Gemini, and yet, how does that all fit together? So this morning I went through the process of putting it all together for you. And for those of you who have joined the Living Astrology membership, you will have that as a separate PDF for yourself to remind you every Gemini season about what it is that is happening between the human design gates and the sign of Gemini. And I think I'm going to do this on a regular because every sign has specific gates that the sun moves through at the same time. All right, and then we'll bring it all together and close the broadcast with some, hopefully some, great advice for dealing with this time period. Okay, so welcome everybody who's been showing up. I see Nancy Ross. Good morning. Hope your move is enjoyable and easy. Yes, me too. Um, I have the moon in Virgo, so what I really do enjoy is having a plan, and I have yet to develop that plan. It's in my mind. But I need to kind of bring it all together. But I have so much going on in my business right now. There's so much going on astrologically. The last thing that I should have been doing at this point in time is a move, but time and opportunity showed up. Got to go with the flow. Then there's J Lo. Good morning to you out there. Jacqueline Tyler, good to see you. And she has a new kitty named Calypso. I love that name. Good morning, Asa. It's good to see you. Christine Buckingham, hello. And everyone else I can see behind the scenes that is not yet live with us in the chat. So let's start with Mercury Cazimi at gate 16 in the Human Design Throat Center. So this morning, it might be a good idea to have both your astrology chart and your human design chart, if possible, in front of you so that you can follow along with all of this. So today, Mercury reaches what is called the superior conjunction with the sun, and that is occurring in about 9 degrees of Gemini, 9 and some change of Gemini. In fact, I'll bring it up and kind of show it to you on the stage at this point so that you can see it. And I've highlighted the sun and Mercury over here in Gemini. This is what the symbol of Gemini looks like in your astrology chart. And this then places it in a house. And each of these pie-shaped pieces are the houses. And the houses represent an area of your life that is impacted by whatever the transit is, right? Sometimes you've got two houses because you've got one planet here and a planet over here. But right now we have this conjunction. And so Gemini is hosting that conjunction right now. So, what is a superior conjunction? Well, the superior only happens when Mercury is direct. And this signals what's been sort of brewing in our minds since the last Mercury retrograde, right? And now it begins to make sense, right? So when the last Mercury retrograde happened, which was in March and into early April, we had, possibly this download of information, and it might have been very confusing at that point because it's retrograde. We don't know what it means. We don't know what to do with it exactly. And so things could have felt like a little out of control with our minds. And now Mercury is moving direct. And so at the superior conjunction, it tends to bring illumination and a culmination, sort of like the full moon. This very much has a full moon feel to it, except instead of emotions, this is the energy of the mental energy or the energy of the mind and communication. So there are some key energetic themes that occur with this superior conjunction. And it is where things begin to make sense, right? So if you go back to March and April, and there was a lot going on there because Venus was also in her retrograde phase, and Mercury in the same phase. They basically went retrograde pretty much in the same degrees, and it was just an interesting time blending our mind and the mental capacities and Venus, where our values and our relationships were. And how was all that playing out? So if you can think back then, now things begin to make sense. Maybe the conversations you had then, the ideas that were coming up then, and so forth. So now at the superior conjunction, i.e., the Mercury-Sun Cazimi or Mercury Cazimi, it's a time of full illumination, right? You're flooded with information and insights, but maybe you have not got yet some complete clarity about what all of this means. And that's okay. but it is all starting to come together, right, in a way that you can understand it. You may feel mental overload because there's been a lot of mental energy floating around, and it might create stress as the mind gathers and tries to digest everything that's been swirling in your field or in your energy or in your world, right? There's been a lot of information. And this particular moment, the Kazemi asks, kind of gives you a moment or asks for you to pause in your mental digestion, just to hold your mind steady, right? Without, moving off into various different directions, giving you some time to sift through what's relevant and what needs to be released, what's worth carrying forward and what's not, right? What would be too much to carry forward, and this is a gateway to deeper understanding in a way, because all of that information that does end up sticking with you really becomes wisdom, right? So you're pausing for this mental digestion so you can decide what's relevant, what's worth keeping, and what do I want to take forward as I turn that information and those ideas and those conversations into wisdom, right? And it's a reminder that clarity will come from that flood of and that initial flood of information that you've experienced, right? Or downloads and things like that. Now there are two parts to this Kazemi, right? Always in a Kazemi there are two parts. Today's conjunction is the peak, right? Where it's like the full moon of the mind revealing everything that's been hidden perhaps. And I would also say go to your dreams. Right? What have you been dreaming about lately? And have they been fear-based? Have they been feeling anxious or stressed? Have you not been dreaming? Because that's another thing, that's another indication that your mind is restless and you're not able to go completely down into the sleep, as you normally would. And the second part of this is the emergence of Mercury out of the glare of the sun and into the evening star phase of his transits. And that happens a few days after the Kazemi, so we probably won't see that, until later on. Now, Mercury will still be very low on the horizon. If you want to eyeball it, you'd have to, be, above trees or, in a clearing somewhere, being able to look, toward where the sun has just set, and you will see Mercury just breaking out before he sets with the sun. And this is when Mercury becomes the evening star, or becomes, he's not really the evening star. We usually leave that to Venus, but he'll be an evening star nonetheless. It's an invitation for you to sift and sort through all that's been gathered in your mind over this time. You begin to see this dual nature of Mercury and Gemini, integrating curiosity with discernment and new insights with the wisdom of the past, right? You see these two things and you're being asked to blend them or bring them together into coherence. I guess that would be another word that we could use for this. And there's a pull to become more objective and more cautious. Interestingly enough, you're now invited to do something with all of your insights and your ideas rather than simply gathering them, right? There's a time and a place to gather, and there's a time and a place coming soon, like today and beyond, for us to take action. And that is part of this Mercury emerging as the evening star. There is this time now where deeper wisdom emerges, like a pot of soup that's simmering down, right, to the goodness, right, the potent essence of all the ingredients that have come together. And what's left is the perfected, if you will, although you don't have to seek perfection, but the perfected form of what the mind has been working on over the last several weeks and months. All right. So today, let your mind sort of gather and explore all the ideas and information and insights that have been occurring for you since March's retrograde of Mercury. Don't rush to conclusions, right? Just gather, right? So you're still gathering and exploring. Then in the coming days, take time to reflect on all of that. And, this is where a good journal comes in handy too, right? Where you can kind of, write things down and explore ideas as they happen. And what's real, right? What's just noise? What's just blah, 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 blah in the background? And then share your enthusiastic voice today and beyond, because the gate 16, which is where this Kazemi is occurring, is called the gate of enthusiasm. It's a gate where you express your passion for an idea, for a project, for a person, for life in general, for nature, whatever it is, right? And be open to refining that message as Mercury's evening star phase begins, right? And this will take us right up until the next retrograde, which is in July. I believe July 18th is when that next retrograde begins. And then that becomes the inferior conjunction, where then Mercury and the Sun meet again, but this time they meet between the Earth and the Sun rather than Mercury, like it is today, meeting outside of the Sun. So it's a different feel when we're in that retrograde. And actually, that becomes the beginning of the Mercury cycle. Interesting, right? The beginning of the Mercury cycle starts when we have a retrograde. And now it'd be like the new moon, right? And now we're at the full moon and we'll be moving backward, toward that new moon, new Mercury feel. All right. So from this flood of ideas, let me see if I can switch screens here just a minute. Um, let's see who else is out there this morning. Good morning, Terry Lee. Good morning, Teddy. Good morning, Amy. Good morning, Mary Stevens. And treat yourself, Julie. Hello, Julie. Amanda J. Good to have you with us over there from England. And Peggy Ann Mulcahy. Good morning to you as well. And anybody else that I'm missing, good morning. It's great to have you with us. I'm going to switch over now to the human design energies and show them on the stage here, where you can see visually where the gate 16 is. And I realized somebody told me the other day that my actual cursor doesn't show up. But if you look at the upper left corner of the highlighted or colored in throat center of this human design, you'll see the gate 16. And the Sun is at the gate 16. So what we have then is, from this flood of ideas and this enthusiastic expression for whatever passion we have from the Kazemi and from gate 16, we naturally move into this human design perspective where enthusiasm aligns perfectly with this Mercury Kazemi. Right? Because, we're kind of coalescing all of this passion, all these ideas, these insights into something that excites us, that makes us, kind of amplifies authentic excitement in the subject matter, right? Whatever it is. And the need, want, desire to share our voices, share our insights with others. Now, the Earth is grounding us at this moment at the gate 9, and I didn't highlight the gate 9 here because this is actually a slide that I was using for something later here in the broadcast. But if you look down at the sacral center, which is the second center up from the bottom, the gate 9 resides at the lower right quadrant or lower right corner. This is where the Earth is during this period of time, and Earth here is at the gate of focus. So focus provides the anchor, right? The anchor to help us ground this mental flurry of ideas and information into something practical, but also sustainable, right? If we can't do that, then, we become scattered and we're flighty. So the Earth really helps to ground all of this excitement, all of this passionate, information, energy, so that it's usable, right? It's usable. So this Mercury Kazemi is a moment of, deep mental illumination. There's just no way around that. Our minds have been super activated. It's like turning a light on in every house or in every room of your house all at one time. It's this wow, bright light. My husband has this one light that sits over his train board, and it's like 150 watts of bright, and it's crazy light, right? Every time he turns that on, I'm like, woohoo, wake up. So this is a woohoo, wake up moment where the light is very bright and you might feel this rush of ideas, but flashes of inspiration, flashes of insight as well, and even some mental overwhelm. So sometimes you might need to get up from your desk, as I've had to do these last few days, and just go do something that is mindless, like go get the mail, right? Or go do some gardening, something that grounds me a little bit. Now, don't worry if clarity doesn't arrive immediately. Um, Things sometimes take time for integration. So today is more about witnessing the information and letting it sort of swirl around you, knowing that the real integration and refinement will happen in the coming days, right? That's just how that works. As Mercury becomes visible again, so too will those pieces of information and that wisdom start to coalesce, right, in within you. So write down your thoughts without judgment. Don't judge yourself or anything about the thought. Just write it down. Let it all spill out, right? Just until you've got writer's cramp, right? From writing so much. But this is part of the sorting process, right? If you had a pile of papers, this is me, like at least once a week, I'm doing this. This goes into the recycle, this goes into files, and this goes into the trash or into the shredder. So we're sorting things, right? Sorting our thoughts and our ideas, and we'll choose which ones to take action on, what really truly resonates with us, and what's simply the mental noise, right? The blah 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 whoop, whoop, whoop in the background. Now, this is a time to ground your excitement. With the sun in the gate 16 and the earth in the gate 9, trust that your enthusiasm will find its place. And you'll be able to focus on it, right? And then focusing on it will allow you to begin to express it. You'll kind of be by focusing on what you're passionate about, you'll bring it into meaningful expression, right? Or meaningful action. So pause and breathe, right? Sometimes you just got to pause and breathe, allow for mental stillness, even as the ideas are swirling around, right? Or even as all of the, input is getting to you. Sometimes the most potent insights arrive in the silence between thoughts or when you're not thinking about it, right? That's when that aha moment can sort of come in to play. So let this Mercury Cazimi and the days following it be a reminder that your voice matters, that what you have to share is important, and only you can share your wisdom in the way that is correct and right for you. It's not just about the words that you speak, it's also about the clarity and the authenticity behind the words. How does it land with the people around you? And over the weekend, maybe give yourself time and space to integrate all of this thought, process all of these ideas, reflect which ones are most important, which ones can I, let out, and let your enthusiastic voice emerge with power and purpose over the next several days. Okay. Now I want to look at the gate 16 once more, the gate of enthusiasm, because this is a gate that's really about sharing your passion and engaging others with your authentic excitement. So, you know how when you are excited about something, that others can pick up that excitement. It's contagious, right? This is a contagious sort of energy. Now, we do have to watch for a shadow in the gate 16, as there's always something, right? And the shadow here is about sharing your passion with over exuberance and or getting lost in just the superficial part of it, the surface level chatter. So let your enthusiasm come from an authentic place, right? Make sure it's coming from something deeper. And then with the sun at the gate, or earth, excuse me, at the gate 9, the earth supports us in refining and in grounding our enthusiasm into the practical steps and into the sustained focus that we need in order to really, share it appropriately. So it's about choosing then with the earth at the gate focus or gate 9 focus, it's about choosing what to pour your energy into. So you don't dissipate your enthusiasm, right? So together, the sun and earth in this particular week create a beautiful tension between expressing your excitement and using your enthusiasm and as a voice, as a sharing, as a, pouring out your wisdom, and also focusing it into something tangible. Okay, so bringing those two things together. Now, let's kind of, I'm going to bring this back for a second. How is everybody doing there? Any questions, comments? What's going on? 300,000 lumens. um, where are you moving to? Jacqueline says, I'm not moving there. I'm moving back to where I used to live, Cedro Woolley, and we're downsizing our lives. And it's just such an interesting process to do that. And hello, Terry. Good to see you. I'm surprised you have the time today to listen in. Anyway, let's carry on, shall we? Let's go to gene keys. So I really, I almost just removed myself from the screen. That would not have been good. I really love sharing the gene keys because the gene keys give us this sort of holographic view of all of the energies, right? Of all the gates, i.e., gene keys, they're called in the gene key system. And in the gene key 16, which would be the gate 16, the gate of enthusiasm, the gene key itself is always layered in three levels. At the lowest level, we have the shadow energy, and then it rises to the gift level. And then we get the siddhi, or the highest expression, the mastery, if you will, of the energy of that particular gene key or gate, as it's called in human design. So in human design, the gate 16 is known as the gate of enthusiasm. And it's the voice of joyful expression of what you're passionate about. You're showing your passion and you're captivating others with your voice because of your excitement, right? In the lowest expression through the gene keys, it becomes this energy of indifference, right? The gene key of indifference here means that we're kind of uninspired, right? We're not feeling inspired, and it might come across in our voice. It might come across in how you share the information with someone else. And maybe you're stuck in repetition, right? All you can do is say the same thoughts over and over again, and it lacks zest. In quantum human design, the gate 16 is called zest, right? I just like enthusiasm. I'm not sure why the change to zest, but it works, right? Zest is an important word for us here. And as we move out of indifference, we move to versatility. And through versatility, we explore new interests. Maybe we look for new things to try. Maybe we learn to adapt our talents in new ways, right? We expand our voice in some way to embrace something of a next level. So we become versatile, not just repeating by rote the same things over and over. But by being versatile, we can, add new things. Like this morning, I'm being versatile because I'm adding Gene Keys information to the human design and Gemini information that we've been talking about, right? When we get to the mastery here is called mastery. Imagine that, mastery. And here we arrive at the effortless expression of our passions, of our unique genius, and our fully embodied and joyful expression that we share with others when we're lit up, right? When we're on fire, when we're or when we're in our passion. So in the gene keys, we always talk about it as a journey, right? There's a journey from indifference to mastery by being versatile, right? So using those three words, we're on this pathway or journey from indifference to mastery through being versatile. So that's how I want you to think of it. So today, ask yourself, where are you feeling stuck and or indifferent, right? Like meh, right? So how can you live in more curiosity, a very Gemini trait, and more versatility, also a very Gemini trait? And remember that mastery is not perfection. No one is asking you to reach for perfection. Mastery is the natural confidence that comes from playing and refining your skills over time. Thinking of joyful expression as play, right? I'm playing at this, new skill. I'm adopting or adapting to new information that feels playful or feels exciting. So you don't have to be perfect at it. You just want to be able to move in a forward way without being indifferent, right? Now, if we do that same thing with the earth at the gate 9, remember the gate 9 is the gate of focus where energy narrows in on what's truly important and cuts through all the distractions, right? Think about like blinders, right? You're just looking straight forward. So that's what this gate of focus is all about. And in the gene keys, the lowest expression or shadow is inertia. And inertia is the failure to be able to move forward, right? Just stuck, right? I'm in this inertial state. And in the gift, this is determination. And in the highest expression, I love this, it's invincibility. So if we look at this as a journey in the gene keys, as we did with the 16, this is the journey from inertia to invincibility through determination. All right. So in the gene keys pathway, we start with inertia, which is where we feel the stuckness of the unsure about what the next step is, or the feeling of being scattered could be part of that as well. So we're unable to gather momentum. That's what inertia is, the inability to gather momentum. And then we move through determination, finding the will to stay the course, right? Or to push through the challenges and to keep going even when the path isn't clear, to keep going even when the path feels a little scary, right? Using determination, willpower. And eventually we reach invincibility, right? The highest expression, the city expression, is a state of unwavering presence where you trust in your ability to shape your life's direction, right? That you're the master, you're the mistress in your own life. Like your soul knows the best direction for you to go. So think about this now. Where in your own life have you been feeling inertia? Like you're going in circles, maybe round and around, where you're unable to break out of the old and push through to the new? What small steps can you take today? What little teeny weeny step can you take today to activate determination and pull yourself out of inertia? And refocus your energy toward that next step, right? One step leads to the next step, leads to the next step, right? That's what this is all about. And remember, the Earth's grounding energy is your anchor. And it helps you to stay steady even when the Gemini scattered influence, mental stimulation energy gets amped up, right? You always have that ability to come back to your center and to stay anchored in your truth, anchored in your presence. All right. Any questions about that? Gala, after getting fired March 13th, I scored my dream job on the 27th of May, the new moon. She just had a classic Aries ascendant Scorpio. I love it, Gala. Congratulations. That's great. You know, it's sometimes there's such fear around change for us, right? And that we can see something like getting fired from a job as like the end of, life as we know it, or, some kind of danger or some kind of trouble ahead, when really it could be a gateway, as it has been then for you, Gayla, to the dream job, right? I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's see. Now, let's combine these gene keys and these gates to see what we have going on. So, this combined pathway, if you will, is about enthusiasm meeting focus. And today, the two energies sort of dance together. And enthusiasm, the gate 16, is the spark, right? It's the inspiration. And then your focus kicks in because focus is the steady flame, right? Once you spark and you get the fire lit, it's the ever growing fire of inspiration, of wisdom, of whatever it is that you're getting ready to share. And it keeps your passions from burning out, right? To focus, right? But if you're focusing, it's not like you're throwing everything out there all at once. You're focusing a little at a time so that there isn't this burnout. And from the gene key perspective, these pathways together remind you that your voice isn't just about what you say. It's more about the steadfast devotion that you have to refining your gifts and showing up as your authentic self in every moment, right? Every moment. So these archetypes today guide you, and over the weekend can guide you to let your versatile enthusiasm inspire fresh ideas, right? And then let your determined focus keep you steady on your path to mastery, right? Using all of those words, putting those concepts together. Okay. Now, let us take a look back at the picture of the throat center here. So the next thing I really wanted to talk about this morning is about the throat center. All but one of the Gemini gates sits on the throat center. So that really kind of, puts into perspective the whole communication manifestation aspect of Gemini energy. And the throat center in human design is the center of communication and manifestation, amazingly enough, right? It's the energy hub where everything finds its voice. Everything like ideas and emotions and life force energy comes out into the world, right? It doesn't really come out into the world unless it comes through the throat center. In the beginning, God said, "Let there be light." It was the said part, right? It leads us to believe that manifesting has to come through the voice. It has to come from what we say, which then becomes what we do, which then becomes manifesting, right? And it's not just about speaking, though. It's about bringing inner energy to the outer expression. And that includes verbal expression for sure, speaking your truth, sharing ideas, singing, storytelling, all of the sharing ways, ways of sharing that we have. And it's also about action oriented manifestation, the doing, the creating, the moving energy from idea into form, right? That's the throat center. And the core theme of the throat center is transformation through communication, right? It's how the invisible becomes visible and how the inner world becomes shared with others. That's how, if I have ideas like this morning, sitting down thinking about all the things I wanted to talk about this morning, that was all in the realm of idea and now being made manifest through my voice, right? Same thing in your own life, right? Your ideas, what you're passionate about, coming from the heart, maybe coming up through the voice, then and out to become manifest. Now, when the throat is open and aligned, your voice is clear, it's impactful, and authentic. When it's blocked or misaligned, you feel pressure to speak or to act without clarity. And that can sometimes lead to frustration, leaping into or out of things, feeling unheard, unvalued, or undervalued, unrecognized, and burnout, right? Leads to burnout. So, of course, today's not my purpose today isn't to tell you how to use your voice appropriately, but we could say that using your voice appropriately stems from your passion and sharing your passion in the right time, right place, right people that will understand you, that will hear you, that will recognize your brilliance in all of that. So, we will get to that someday, another deeper lesson on the throat center. But now I want to take a look at the Gemini voices here in the throat center. And the interesting thing that I saw here is that, Gemini energy we think of as playful and curious and lots of ideas, lots of communication. And there's this dynamic quality to the voice that comes from the Gemini part of our charts, right? You all have Gemini somewhere. And the Gemini energy is also about exploration and then sharing ideas and then connecting with others, right? Of like minds, perhaps, or of, similar tastes and things like that. Gemini is the architect of the archetype, excuse me, of the storyteller, the messenger, the communicator. Think about Mercury and all the myths that you've ever heard of Mercury. What is he? Hermes, he's the messenger. He's fleet-footed, right? He takes messages, he ferries messages from one group to another, from the gods to the humans, that type of thing. So these gates of Gemini, which are all highlighted here in blue, the two that are in pink are kind of bridge gates, right? They are at the end of the sign previous. The gate 8 is really a Taurus gate, but there's like a few hours of Gemini that this gate is activated. And at the end, this is really a Cancer gate, but it is also the last degree or minutes of Gemini. So I put them in pink so you'd see that these 5 gates are the actual Gemini full on gates. And these gates give us a range of ways in which we can express ourselves, from the spark of new ideas, coming maybe from the 16, to the depth of our shared experience, right? When we get deeper into the things that we are sharing. So I want to take a look at each of these gates a little bit more in depth so that you have a better idea of what has been shaping up so far in Gemini and what we're looking at as we move through June's part of Gemini energy. So the first gate that we come to is really the gate 8. This happened at the very beginning, right? When I looked at it, it was like only, I don't know, 30 minutes perhaps of Gemini, so not very long. But this was the gate of contribution. It's your unique voice that you contribute to the world. And this voice says, sometimes when we look at the throat center in human design, we think of them as voices. So each gate has a specific voice, and that's what I want to look at today. And again, if you are in the Living Astrology membership, you're going to get all of this written for you and in a downloadable format so you can keep this handy. And the gate 8 voice says, I contribute. And it's the voice of offering your unique flair or your creative contribution to the collective. And how does this fit with Gemini energy? Because I always like that part. How does this all fit together with Gemini? Why is gate 8 at the very end a Gemini gate? And it's because Gemini loves sharing new ideas and perspectives. And the gate 8 channels this into a voice that says, here's how I can help you, or here's how I can inspire you, or here's how I can share my wisdom with you. It reflects, Gemini's curiosity, diversity, and contributing unique insights to the world's ongoing conversation and whatever conversation that is. And of course, that conversation revolves around what it is that excites you, right? What it is that makes you, get happy and excited. Now, the second gate that we looked at is the gate 20, or that we've gone through the gate 20 already. And this is the gate of patience, or sometimes called the gate of the now. This is presence in the now, and it expresses wisdom moment by moment, right? In the now moment. And the voice here says, I am present, right? I am present. The voice of presence, of immediacy, speaking only what's relevant to the moment. And how does this fit Gemini? Well, Gemini is inherently present minded in that it's always curious about what's happening now. Like, how does this connect? How do I fit this idea into something else? And the gate 20's I am captures this. It actually is Gemini's gift of being fully engaged in the current moment that we see reflected to us in the voice of immediacy, or the I am present voice. So that was gate 20. Now remember, that was just last week, right? Last week. Then we move to today's gate, the gate 16, yippee yippee, where this is the voice of enthusiasm. It sharing your excitement in a way that uplifts others, right? That makes other people get excited. And this voice actually kind of says something like, I experiment. I experiment with enthusiasm. And the voice of excitement and experimentation, sharing your passion, right? Sharing your ideas. And then how does this fit with Gemini energy? Well, Gemini thrives on learning and sharing, which is at the heart of the gate 16, where experimentation and the results of said experimentation and the ideas that that might generate all come out in this sort of lively curiosity that then we enthusiastically share with others. It shows how Gemini's playful spirit can ignite excitement in others, right? Getting excited. All right, next week, we move into the sun at the gate 35. This is the voice of adventure, sharing what you've learned from the experiences that you've had. So the gate 35's voice is saying, I experience. So this is the voice of sharing your journey and what you've learned through life's adventures, through all of the different experiences, right? This is my experience and I'm sharing that with you. Now, how does this fit with Gemini energy? So, Gemini's love of storytelling is embodied in this gate 35. And it's the voice of I experience, as I said, and it speaks to Gemini's knack for gathering and sharing stories, right? And remember, we said Gemini, kind of the storyteller energy, and weaving the experiences into meaningful narratives that we share with other people via the story. So the gate 35 says, I experience, right? Now, after that, the next week we'll be in the gate 12. This is the gate of the channel, which is a voice of refinement, pausing to ensure depth and truth in expression. And this voice says, I articulate. And it's the voice of that bringing in information, refining that information, carefully choosing what to say and what not to say, right? That is the gate 12. And how does this fit in with Gemini? Well, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the messenger, and gate 12's refined voice adds depth to Gemini's otherwise light and quick energy, right? Those superficial it's funny, this is the sun in my own chart, right? At gate 12. And I see myself doing this all the time, right? I get this information and today was like, oh, I want to talk about Mercury Cazimi, and then layering all of the different pieces for that I bring to you in the learning and experience of the words that I'm sharing with you. So the gate 12 here really is linked to channeling the voice, right? The voice of enthusiasm. And it really reflects Gemini energies that are their abilities to discern what's worth sharing and hold back when it's needed, to hold back and not say things that are superfluous or are in the wrong timing or that are would impact a group negatively, something like that. And then finally, the last gate that has Gemini energy for a very brief time right before it moves into Cancer, so very cuspy energy. And the gate 15 is called the gate of compassion, but also the gate of extremes. This is the broad, inclusive voice of love and unity. In traditional human design, this was called the gate of the love of humanity, and it has a very loving energy that turns into compassion and tolerance and acceptance and inclusivity. And the voice here says, I harmonize. The voice of inclusivity and balancing the extremes of experiences with compassion. And how does this fit with Gemini? Well, Gemini can be seen as dual natured, right? Moving between extremes. Gate 15 mirrors this. And it's the Gemini invitation to hold space for differences and to bring harmony to diversity, which then transitions into the sharing, caring, nurturing qualities of Cancer, right? As we move out of that Gemini energy and into the Cancer energy later. And we'll talk more about how that gate pertains to Cancer. All right. Wow, I got through everything I wanted to share with you guys this morning. I can't believe I did that. And I did it effectively, I think. All right. So tell me, what's up? What do you guys want to know? What are your questions? Um, do tell. How are you experiencing this Gemini season? How are you experiencing these gates in your life? Share, share, share. JLo says, Janet, if there was no such rule of astro degree rules for the planets, what would you say the degrees for conjunction would be now that we have the big boys outermost space? I am not sure what you mean by that, JLo. Um, Maybe you mean would be as they vibrate at higher frequencies, their orb could it be a few notches more? Yeah, I think depending on the planet, JLo, I there are a lot of factors when I'm looking at someone's chart, especially a transit chart or a solar return chart, which are kind of my favorite kind of charts to do. I see that if you have a planet, let's say, that is 10 degrees, let's say Mercury is 10 degrees away from the sun, but the sun in the solar return or the transit happens to be conjunct Venus and Mars. I'm making this up, by the way, then I'm actually going to include that Mercury into that conjunction, even though it's too wide by usual standards, because there's so much weight in that sign by the other three that are in the conjunction. So I might not call it as a major sort of point, but I will definitely use it and figure it into the grander expression of how that affects a person. So definitely the outer planets, when we look at Pluto and Neptune and Uranus, we give them wider orbs already because they have such a collective impact on us. So, for example, Pluto in Richard Tarnas's Cosmos and Psyche, excellent book if you want to go deeper into astrology, transits and cycles and rhythms and things like that. He talks about Pluto in a 15-degree orb. That's huge. But Pluto has such power, right? That he begins an impact the moment he comes within 10 to 15 degrees of another planet. So, for instance, in a chart, like in my own chart right now, Pluto is within 3 degrees of my natal Jupiter and is also in retrograde moving back and will still be within orb of my natal Saturn. So those themes are still playing out, even though the orbs are technically a little wide for the usual thing that we would look at, but it's powerful. And another thing, think of the planet Jupiter. Jupiter's the largest planet in our solar system. And, we think astronomically, I've heard it said that Jupiter is like, without a Jupiter in our solar system, we would all be bombarded with way more comet debris, asteroids, meteors, and things like that. And that's because Jupiter has this very magnetic quality about it that it draws, those pieces of debris in the sky toward it. Now, it doesn't draw all of it, obviously, because as you know, the moon and Earth and every other planet has been pockmarked by asteroids and things like that. But think about how much worse it could be without a Jupiter. So now, if we translate that to your astrology chart, Jupiter has a lot of magnetic pull. And so whatever it's coming into contact with or close to contact with is going to be powerful and get more and more powerful the closer it moves. And um, we could do the same with any of the other planets. I think when we get to the inner planets, it needs to be a little closer in degrees because we actually have a personal impact by that. So it's narrower, in other words. But now I see, um, planets, and this speaks to what you're talking about. She's wondering this because consciousness has grown, and so how does that, impact our experience of these planets? And I think as our consciousness grows and evolves, we are also elevating the imagery and the description of each of those planets, right? We're looking at their higher octave, and this is where the gene keys comes in so very helpful, because what Richard Rudd has done here is given us the words for that highest expression, right? So if we just go back to today's gene key, let's do the 16, where in the highest expression, it was enthusiasm. No, that it was, hold on, let me go back to the gene key part here. It was, well, let's do the gene key 9. Inertia was the lowest expression. In the highest, it's invincibility. So right now, likely humanity is hovering somewhere around the gift of determination. But as things keep evolving, we're moving closer and closer to recognizing our true inner power and using determination energy to become invincible. So as we keep evolving, we have to evolve our thinking about each of the planets and each of the signs and each of the gates and the gene keys, right? We're evolving those as well. And you see that with Karen's human design or quantum human design, where she took the languaging of the traditional human design and said, yeah, that's not quite cutting it. Let's move it into, the next evolution. And I think, in my own estimation, when I was looking at reframing the zodiac to be more inclusive of the feminine energy, which at some point I need to go back to because that was an incomplete thought, right? I haven't quite finished that one yet. And how, we have to have a new way of consciously connecting to the zodiac so that it becomes more inclusive of the divine feminine. Okay. And so that's happening, and it'll keep happening over time as we all evolve. So do the representations in the archetypes of the planets and the signs and the points, etc. I hope that answers your question, J-Lo. She says, "You said Jupiter, and I started hearing the song. I heard it through the grapevine." I love it. That's a very Mercury song, isn't it? Um, and I love it. 16:6, her attraction, and 9:2, South Node. Have to love the universal laws. I love that. That's great. Um, and if you don't understand what J-Lo and I are talking about there as far as attraction and the design South Node, we're talking gene keys kind of and human design together. In the gene keys, it's a journey, right? The gene keys they're just lovely as a journey. If you ever want to take a journey with me through your gene keys, I'm game, right? I love doing that. It's a more contemplative, it's not like a one reading thing that we would do. It's a journey that we would take together through your gene keys where we'd find your attraction. We would find what it is that your pearl is, let's say, and all of the different points in that journey that we could go through. So let me know if that's something that you're interested in. So in the last few minutes that we have here, let's pull a couple of cards. Um, I th I think if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna go back to my 2 new decks because I haven't even really had time this week so far to play with them very much myself. So, playing them with you allows me to see how well they work. So today, first of all, this is the Sisterhood of the Seers, excuse me, and it's an oracle by Athena Laz. And so far, using this deck, I've really enjoyed the wording. Okay. And this one jumped out. Activate the sisterhood. Card number 44. Activate the sisterhood. I think this card is in response to my thinking about having to go back and finish my um, reframing of the zodiac. How fun is that? Instant response. 44. Here we go. So, the essential meaning of this card is better than you can imagine. Soul connections, handling any problems over to spirit, handing any problems over to spirit, success and joy, celebration, friendship, and community. Wow, that's got a powerful punch to it, don't you think? The message says, "What a beautiful journey you've been on, dear seer. Now you are being asked to set your sights even higher because you can see not just for yourself, but for the entire world. As a steward of spirit and earth, a seer of the sisterhood, you are held in community in a way that is unshakable. With the divine partnership, anything is possible. Hand over any unsolvable problems to spirit, and you will be assisted. Miracles can happen. Step into this vibration of celebration as you enter the harmonious time in your life where love, connection, and success can arrive easily for you. This is a time for joy, for celebration, and shining bright for those who are stuck in the dark, reminding them that joy can transcend angst." Is that page stuck? It is. There we go. Stand tall, stand proud, and reflect the sacred worlds that live within your heart. Like the sacred spirit that you are, allow your life to become a living prayer, where each step is a ritual in service to the great mystery that weaves all of life together. In the sisterhood of spirit, in this sacred journey, that is your life. Or no, in the sisterhood of spirit, in this sacred journey that is your life, there's always space and time for community, friendship, and celebration. As what is wrong with my eyes this morning? As these are great gifts offered up to humanity. So go out and have some fun. Celebrate anything you can think of. Spirit delights in your ability to play and celebrates your willingness to find joy and levity in a world of duality. You are so loved and held now and forever. In spirit and in service, the Sisterhood of Seers is always with you. And the affirmation says, in this circle of life, I mark my time here by sparking joy, love, and laughter for myself and those around me. I allow life to delight me. How awesome is that? All right, guys. Card 44 as well. Double fours. Make it a new framework, right? Build a new framework. Okay, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you on Monday to talk about June. If you can believe it, we're going into June, and we'll see what the opening salvos are for that month. See you then. Bye for now.